Okay, good morning and welcome. My name is Lada Kozacek and I'm a marketing specialist at Wilmac Technologies, and I'll be your moderator today. So this is the first webinar in our brand new WFM Insider series, and we've put this series together specifically for public safety leaders who want a closer look at what modern workforce management can do to your center. So today's session runs about 30 minutes, and we're here to have a conversation about wellness, something that's top of mind for most of public safety professionals. So today we're going to dig into the role Agentic AI and workforce management can play in improving telecommunicators' wellness. But before we start, just a couple of housekeeping items. So the first thing is that this session is being recorded and we'll send you the recording afterwards. Also, we would love to hear from you, so please submit your questions or comments in the chat option on your screen, and as we go, and we'll address them at the end of this session. And finally, we've got a great group with us today. I'm joined by Stephen McDonnell, Wilmac's President and CEO, and Charles Snedden, Wilmac's WFM Specialist, who between them have decades of experience in public safety and workforce management. So, all right, let's get into it, and I'll hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Lada. Appreciate the introduction. And as she said, I'm Steve McDonnell. I'm CEO of Wilmac Technologies. And before we start, I just want to give you guys a quick background on Wilmac and our credibility on why we've decided to build a WFM solution for public safety. And it's really around 3 chapters. That is our history. So we've been a nice business partner for over 30 years, and we started that journey in the public safety sector. So we have sold, implemented, and supported over 300 PSAPs throughout North America with NICE. That has given us deep domain expertise. We know how the workflows are. The majority of our employees have worked in public safety for the past 15 years with public safety. So we know the world very well. In parallel to doing that, the part that I call chapter 2 would be we sold into enterprise contact centers. And when we were doing that, we were able to take a deep dive into the workforce management world. As I'll get to a little later today, most other industries are already utilizing workforce management. So we were able to implement, design, support, and really live through a few different evolutions of workforce management. And because of that, we feel like we have a domain expertise of workforce management. And then the third chapter, which kind of ties this all together, and us being able to come from being a reseller to somebody who is building software, is financial compliance sector, another area where we resold NICE into. We had a couple customers that came to us in the late 2010s and asked us to build a solution for data archiving, specifically around their voice calls. Our current vendors weren't interested in doing that. So we decided, hey, if this is what the customer needs, we're going to go ahead and do that. So that began our journey into building software, and has led us today to the Agentic AI world and WFM. So bringing all those 3 chapters together has really kind of formed a perfect storm for Wilmac to bring WFM and workforce management into the PSAP world. So I don't know, Charlie, you have anything else to say on that? Charlie has a deep background specifically in workforce management. But I'll get
I think it's good to say that enterprise workforce management is where I came from. I've spent at least the last 2 decades in enterprise workforce management, your typical contact center, your service center, your sales center, and more recently been working with yourselves at Wilmac and previously with other organizations in the 911 or the emergency call centers.
All right, great. And as I just mentioned, workforce management is actually table stakes to every other call-taking industry in the world right now. I do find it shocking that, in my opinion, the most important call taking industry does not have workforce management, but that's a gap that we are trying to fill. I think it's a gap that all PSAPs definitely deserve. And quickly moving on to that, give you a quick brief on how we feel, what the true difference between actually scheduling versus workforce management. So scheduling happens obviously in PSAPs, whether that's through a Microsoft Excel, a whiteboard, scheduling tools or platforms. I know a bunch of PSAPs do utilize software scheduling tools. Some of them might be built for fire, police. We've even seen healthcare. We've never seen it specifically built for PSAPs, but scheduling is static. And obviously a PSAP is very dynamic, very fluid. Things are happening quick. So when you talk about manual scheduling, it's pretty simple. Who is working, when they're working, and where they're working. Some of the tools can manage time off, publish rosters, but the problem is it stops working the moment something changes. And as we all know in PSAPs, stuff changes all the time. So workforce management was built 20 to 30 years ago, specifically around financial service and insurance contact centers, basically saying, hey, this is too important. We have to have our contact center staffed correctly all the time. We have to be able to figure out real time what is going on. We are losing dollars. We are getting our employees frustrated, and leads to turnover. So workforce management was built, and again, that's spread pretty much across any call taking industry. And it really gives you the real-time visibility. It can actually forecast demand before it comes in. It takes your history of all the calls that have came in, and it also gives you a consistent staffing standards where it's not one or two supervisors having to make the decisions. So in that case, a lot of the supervisors, it can turn into a firefight quick. Someone doesn't show up, someone calls out, so it gets overstaffed quickly. This allows people to make real-time decisions and really just assist the supervisors. So that is my high-level view of it. Charlie could get probably a little bit more technical on some of the differences.
Yeah, you say it's been around for 20, 30 years, and workforce management has been around for that time in various guises and various pieces of software. I think one of the key things and the distinctions that I think you were making there, Steve, is that a schedule is a prediction, but workforce management is the response, right? You deal with what you need to do, the real-time aspects, the calling off sick, the overtime requirements, the spike in calls. How do we deal with those? And as you said, the traditional enterprise contact center uses different tools to deal with that, whereas 911 centers, we need the people to answer those calls, right? It's definitely something that you can't put on hold, if you will. And that's why I think WFM in a 911 center is so much more of a stronger tool, because it will tell you exactly how many people you need for those calls. It will be able to tell you exactly what you need to do to handle those calls. If somebody's stuck on a long call, or they've had to take a wellness break because they've been on a call, WFM allows you to manage that a lot better than an Excel spreadsheet.
Great, thanks, Charlie. So moving on, why this is here, it really comes down to outcomes. I think everyone in public safety has gotten into public safety because of the outcomes, and this cool software, all the AI coming out, none of it matters if you're not getting the outcomes that you need. And the three core outcomes we believe workforce management assists with is wellness, which I think everyone in the room is catching up on. I think it's becoming a topic that more and more people are talking about, but is super important and needs to be at the forefront. The second one would be optimizing OT, that we're not going to dive into in this webinar. The third one, faster response time. Those are three high-level outcomes that workforce management really hits directly. And today we're going to talk about wellness. And when I look at the APCO and how they define wellness, they talk about it as multidimensional. It's mental, it's emotional, it's organizational, and it's occupational. And wellness can show up in numerous different ways, but obviously being overstaffed, overworked, not enough breaks, getting called in to fill in OT out of the blue. All that is mental fatigue on someone. And that kind of leads to this bad cycle where you get burnout. And that then leads to somebody wanting to leave. When someone leaves, we all know how difficult it is to go out, try to find new people. In a lot of situations, you're hiring, 2 to 5 people that then have to go through a 6 to 18 months training period, and only 1 to 2 are actually making it through. So it's not only bad for people and what's going on in the center, but it's bad operationally. So being able to use this technology to assist that is absolutely huge. I don't think, and I want to be clear with this, and then all the talks we're going to be doing over the next few years, we do want to be clear. AI is never taking away people, especially in the 911 center. What these people do is so crucial. But what AI can do, and what workforce management definitely will do, is assist with these people and take the stuff that they don't need to be doing out of the way and organize what they do day to day a lot better. So excited to kind of dive into how workforce management and MAC handles these. I don't know, Charlie, is there anything you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate what you said there, AI within 911 and emergency services isn't going to take away the human element. And you talk about agentic AI there as well. There will always be a human who controls and manages the AI. What this does is it allows supervisors to get a break from the mundane Excel spreadsheets, the copying and pasting, the frantically trying to find the last copy of the Excel spreadsheet because this one has crashed. I think there's a lot to be said about taking those important tasks, but also the tasks that can be automated away from the supervisor so they can concentrate on what they should be doing, which is their people and their function within the 911 center.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. Great segue right into Agentic AI. So WFM is our platform. It is a SaaS solution. It can be easily deployed. What we have done is build MAC, which we're going to jump into, which is Agentic AI. So most of the people, we're going to just give a quick high-level view on the different types of AIs out there. Chat or generative AI is probably what everybody has been utilizing. That is your typical ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. You ask it a question, it tells you an answer, it gives a bunch of information. It is a very cool tool that in the past 3 or 4 years has flipped everyone upside down. One of the cool AI solutions that we see in public safety being utilized is conversational AI. That is your Prepareds of the world, your Hypers of the world. And they're doing a great job, and it's phenomenal to see public safety adapting to it so soon. But that is actually, AI listening to a call and answering it and figuring out either answering it or figuring out where to go. In public safety specifically, it's built for non-emergency calls, and we want to make that clear. As someone who lives in the AI world, I don't see anytime soon, if ever, due to kind of the environment of the 911 and mission criticalness of it, that these types of AI solutions would ever be able to take actual mission critical 911 calls. So moving on to Agentic AI, which we will be showing you today, is basically AI that sits in your environment, learns your environment, acts on your environment. You can obviously, and in public safety, we put human in the loop, so it's constantly asking for approvals. But the longer it's in your environment, the more it's learning. It's flagging things. It's surfacing things up proactively, so you're already aware of something that might happen and you can fix it. It can go all the way to fixing it itself, and it's all in real time. Again, the more it trains, the better it gets, and the more information it has, the better it gets. So the more integrations you have to your call handling, to your CAD, to your weather components, you're tying all that in. And it's really, if we move on to the next slide, I'm jumping the gun a little with Mac. It's really a assistant on steroids for your supervisors and dispatchers and call takers. So really cool here. I'll hand it off to Charlie to dive into specifics on Mac.
Yeah, I think you highlighted the differences between your generative AI, which is like your chats, where you ask it a question and a response, compared to your agentic AI, which is more of a the ability to automate tasks, give it a set of tasks, follow one task after the other. If one task gives you an output, use that output to influence the other tasks that it's doing. And you mentioned that with regards to integrations, integrations to your call volumes. It can watch the call volumes, and if the call volumes are going up, it can determine, whether or not we want to change some of the tea breaks, or maybe the call volumes are lower than anticipated, and there's some additional space there. Let's give the call handlers a tea break. Agentic AI can do that. It reacts to the inputs that it receives. You also talked about weather there, Steve, as well. You can have it interface with a weather forecast. So if the weather drops below, say, I'm going to say -3 degrees Celsius. I think you guys are at like 27 Fahrenheit. That is cold, and it gets colder, and it can influence call volumes because of traffic or just general, the bad weather. There's various things that you can learn. But the key thing is that it flags these issues, and it surfaces the recommendations that you would normally do yourself quicker than you would as a supervisor, because it's seeing this information firsthand before the supervisors get to see it. It understands it. It can monitor 5, 10, 15 different inputs all at the same time. The great thing is it learns. It learns from you. It learns from your center. It learns the rhythms of the call volumes, of the tea breaks, the meal breaks, and everything else that you have there. The longer this is running, the longer it has access to your data, the better it becomes over time. It gets sharper, and it knows your operation. What you did say there, Steve, was the human in the loop. That is critical. We're not taking that away. There will always be somebody there who will approve any changes that could be, detrimental to the schedule.
All right, great. One of the cool things and one of the ways to look at Mac is he is a specialist in public safety. So he was built, we built WFM and Mac through customers, PSAP customers coming to us and asking for this to be built, and then sitting with them for 1.5 years and learning their centers inside and out and what happens every day. So these already have that knowledge in there. And what Mac does will take that a step further. Each PSAP obviously is very customized to its own. So it has the general public safety 911 center knowledge, but then when we implement Mac, we implement it with deployed engineers that sit in the center a month, 2 months, 3 months to really understand every workflow and build Mac specifically towards your center. So we're really pumped about Mac, and we think it's going to be a big game changer. Going back to the outcomes quickly, I know we want to see the demo, so I will get through this pretty quick. But some of the ways that it's going to handle burnout. Its schedules are balanced and coverage is consistent. So there's no single dispatcher absorbing disproportionate loads. Standardized basically everything, but definitely standardized break scheduling, rule-based call-out handling, shift swapping and shift bidding give dispatchers more control, predictability over their own schedules. And then obviously, as you can probably tell, this is unbelievable with any PTO or vacation management. The predictability helps everybody from supervisors to dispatchers knowing what's going on, what they can expect. And that just helps people feel more comfortable in their job. I think the visibility into this, so everyone can see the schedule in real time, I think that also helps. It gives people a feeling of everything's okay. We know what's going on. I can see weeks into the future. And again, I think Mac specifically, when we talk about technology, he's an assistant for supervisors, for dispatchers. This is the workflow he's trained in right now is workforce management. But there's other workflows in PSAPs that he would be able to handle. So we're psyched. We think, again, this is a game changer, and we think Mac's the game changer. We think workforce management probably should have been in PSAPs 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So we are pumped and know very confidently the types of quick changes workforce management will do in a 911 center. So Charlie, demo time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to show a couple of things today, which will be in the presentation. Steve, feel free to interrupt if you want to. But what I'm going to do is firstly choose my screen, minimize this, and are you seeing what I'm seeing at the moment?
I am, yes.
Yes. All right. So you can see the colorful Excel spreadsheet. I think we're all very familiar with this. This is the go-to Excel spreadsheet. It's complex, it's complicated, it relies on different people understanding how the spreadsheet works and that type of thing. And I just wanted to bring this as a level set because we're all kind of familiar with this. But what Continuity WFM allows us to do is look at the schedules. The schedules are much cleaner. You can see here that we've got tea breaks, we've got meal breaks, we've got activities that we have within the system. But one of the key things about Wilmac's Continuity WFM is down the left-hand side here, we've got the different stations. We've got dispatch stations, we've got call taker stations, and we're scheduling and we're forecasting towards station coverage. We want to ensure that our stations, our dispatch desks and everything else are manned 24/7. And in doing so, organizations in 911, they tend to have a myriad of shifts and schedules are created within the system. And we can manage that quite simply within the Continuity WFM. The other view that I have here is our people. So yes, we do have the desks and we can see the coverage that we've got in desks. We also have our people. So we can see exactly what everybody is doing for the entire shift. Drew Miller, for example, starts at midnight and finishes at 8 in the morning with a meal break fairly late on in the shift. But the great thing about our shifts and our schedules is that we have the ability to look at the coverage. We mentioned before the ability to forecast, so we can take the call volumes out of the telephony platform. We can match those historical patterns to forecasts. We can influence the forecast by upscaling it, downscaling it, extending the handling time, shortening the handling time. All of those are very complex within Excel. You can do that simply within Continuity WFM, and it shows you this coverage. And one of the reasons why I want to show this one today, Steve, is that you can quite quickly see in a day where the hotspots are going to be based on the volumes that we anticipate. And I know it's very complicated and complex forecasting within 911 because we're discussing emergency services, but there's always a background call volume. There's always a level which will be there. And you can then plan and schedule around that level, plan and schedule for the peaks and troughs that you have within the center. The coverage graph shows you everything that you need to know to understand what's going on. For example, here between 2 and 3, we've got a high risk element, which just basically means we're slightly short staffed because we've got one person on paid time off and we require 10 for that period, but we've actually only got 8 scheduled. So we can manage that, but it also gives us the ability to forecast what our service levels are. So we can anticipate service levels and we can adhere to the NENA standards that are on that side of things. But that's not what we're here for looking at today. What we really want to do is look at Mac. I have had Mac over on this system earlier today just to play and do a few things, but we'll revisit this particular schedule here. Mac is our assistant at the top right-hand corner here. You can see I've been doing various things this morning, but let's ask Mac a question. So we can go, what is the coverage risk today? Now, what does that mean? Well, it means look at the forecast, look at the staff that we have, look at the schedules, the breaks, the lunches, everything that's going on. There could be training, there could be people attending court, that type of thing. So they've been abstracted from the system. Mac can see all that and give you an overview. That overview is printed on the right-hand side, and you can export this, so this can become your report. But we have a total of 10.4 agents or call handlers over the day. We're expecting 2,600 calls. Our target service level in this case is 90 and 10, and we're going to achieve exactly 90%, assuming everything is planned and goes as normal. We also can see our occupancy is at 65%. So that just gives you an insight there. We could ask who is at risk of fatigue. Now I've forgotten how to spell fatigue and I'm under pressure, so I'll just pop in a word here. And the great thing about this is that the machine model knows exactly what you're trying to ask. Now, I've done this one before. I know from history that different people have different shifts. Again, Mac will be able to understand those shifts and then determine, who potentially has some issues. It gives you recommendations, and that's, yep.
Awesome. Just before we go through this, that obviously a broad question, the fatigue question. So that is something that we will work with your team on how you, before this, while we're implementing Mac, and train it on what you guys consider fatigue. And so it knows what the supervisor thinks would be fatigue. It's already in its head. It's not just something Wilmac made up or Mac made up. It comes from your input, and that's how it just gets trained better and better.
Yeah. And the general model we have for this is just saying that, fatigue generally happens between 2 and 4 a.m. In the morning. And we know that because that is generally when, the rest of the world is sleeping, right? So the great thing about it is it understands your environment. It identifies people who have awkward shifts. It determines what time they've got between shifts, whether or not they've had the appropriate time to rest from their last shift. And it will give you a report and identify those people that you have already set rules and compliance rules against to determine what those fatigues are. A number of other things we can do in here, and I know we're pushed on time, but for example, if we go to the time off manager, if you just bear with me one more second here, if I bring in Mac, it's context aware, so it knows that you're in the time off manager. So now here it's asking if it should run the automatic time approvals. So it doesn't do it itself, it still asks you to do that. And that's what we were talking about before, Steve, about human in the loop. It won't do anything without your say-so. And I'll pass that back to you, Steve.
Perfect. So we did that very quickly. Normally we have an hour for a quick call and an hour for the full demo. So we just wanted to show you guys some quick things. But I hope you guys can see the power of workforce management and then obviously adding Mac. I think a lot of centers will be great on just workforce management, but when they're ready for Mac, that takes it to the next level. So quickly, before we move to questions, I know we're running out of time. I said public safety has never had workforce management solution. It hasn't been a norm, hasn't been table stakes. Everyone else has table stakes in this for 20, 30 years. So these numbers have been around, they're proven, they're not made up numbers. These numbers are specifically for a typical 200-seat contact center. And you can look at these numbers and they're pretty eye-opening. And I want to point to the one at the bottom, the productivity. This is just for simple implementation of WFM. Not anyone mastering it, not anyone implementing Mac. This is just for a simple implementation. Our SaaS product is basically a 20-minute implementation. And this is what you're getting just from that. So again, once we get this out into the environment more, we'll get some real numbers for public safety, and we think they're going to be pretty similar. So that's exciting. We want to take a couple quick questions here. If you guys can stick around for 2 to 3 minutes. If you can't, no big deal. I also want to thank representation from APCO and Nina, who are both on the call today. We really appreciate you guys hopping on and seeing this. This means a lot to us. As you can tell, we're passionate. We're ready to bring this out to the market and to the public. We think it's something well deserving, and PSAPs should be looking forward to it, and it can really help them out. And wellness today we hit on, and we are just getting started with that. So thank you guys, and quickly over to Lotta for some questions.
Thank you both, Steve and Charlie. Now let's open it up. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. And also, I can tell right now we've got 2 already. So the first one is how much of Mac is automated versus still requiring supervisor input.
I'll start with that one and then let Charlie. It can technically be completely automated. We don't think it's going to be completely automated for 911 centers. So that's where we talk about human in the loop. So it will get to a certain point and then ask for approval, or say, hey, these are the options. Let me know which option you want and I'll go run and do it. Or, Mr. Supervisor, you can go run and do it. So it is agentic AI. It has, the more it trains, the better it will get, but we plan on deploying it very closely with the 911 center. So it's customized for that specific 911 center, not generalized for PSAPs. And it will have whatever restrictions that specific PSAP wants to put on it. Charlie, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it boils down to the length of time that the agentic AI is in service and the confidence that you have. Like if you have it approving leave and it constantly approves leave, or you have to constantly interject and say, yes, approve that leave, approve that leave. If you're just doing that, you can automate that. So it gives you the option to automate more, but also at the same time, it just enhances what you're already doing.
Got it. Thank you, Steve and Charlie. And the next question is, what does onboarding look like for WFM and Mac? How long before a center is fully up and running?
Great question. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. Near and dear to my heart as someone who has been through software implementations for the past 20 years. And if you asked our dev team, technically speaking, because WFM is a SaaS solution, it can be deployed in 15 to 20 minutes. Mac, probably the same time. We have decided the approach we are going to do is the opposite, I think, of what most AI companies and SaaS companies are doing. We want to deploy forward deployed engineers, people who have been in the PSAP world, people who know centers inside and out, to work very closely with the customer in that specific center to build out the correct workflows. AI is a tricky thing, and we want to make sure it's working correctly for that specific PSAP, customized for that PSAP. And we need to be there as the subject matter experts and assisting and working together as a partnership to get this deployed. It's going to depend on the size of your PSAP. If it's a smaller PSAP, we don't need to be there that long. If it's a larger one, we will be there for a length of time. And I think it's also important, at least at the very start, to be doing it in person, to be having one of our team members there deploying it. Once it's up and running, you can have your daily stand-ups virtually. But I think it's important, especially when we're talking about Mac, to have that relationship with the customer and building out workflows within the 911 center. So I know that didn't answer the question directly, because I said it could technically be deployed in 20 minutes, but we want to be there helping for a long period of time. But that's the vision, and we think that will basically help the transition to AI a lot better. Charlie, anything on that?
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of things there, which are important and close to my heart as well. You know, traditional WFM systems, you're talking weeks, months, and also you don't necessarily have that forward deployed engineer that you were talking about. That accelerates Wilmac's approach. That accelerates the time to deployment, and it does depend on scale and size. So I think you covered everything there. I don't need to add any more to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So just a few more things. First, thank you so much for joining us today and staying with us for a few extra minutes. Secondly, if today's conversation sparked any interest or any questions you didn't get to ask, please let us know. And also, if you would like to see a live demo tailored to your center, please reach out to us directly. The contact info is on the screen right now. And third, we have 2 more sessions coming up in the WFM Insider Series. And so those 2 sessions will be on everything we've talked about today. So the next webinar is the webinar number 2, coming up on April 16th, and is titled Faster Call Response Starts with Smarter Workforce Management. So this one will hone in on faster call response. And the last one, the third webinar, is on April 30th, and it's titled Intelligent Overtime Optimization with Agentic AI, and is focused on optimizing overtime in your center. So those registration links for both are going into the chat right now, and they'll also be in your follow-up email. We hope to see you on April 16th. Thanks everyone again, and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.